Agriculture is still a very important part of Tennessee's current economy. It's also a very important part of Tennessee's past, which is exactly what you can see at the State Agricultural Museum in Nashville.
Tennessee Agricultural Museum was established as an act of legislation in the late 1950s, but the museum was not open to the public until 1979 when operating funds were established to open to the public.
And since 1979, what kind of purposes has it served through the years to residents of the state?
Well, it's a place to honor the agricultural heritage of the state. It's a place where people can learn about different aspects of agriculture and the importance of agriculture in our state, and early mechanization and early efforts towards helping farmers to produce crops in the state.
Now, if someone has never been here before, what kinds of things can they expect to see when they walk inside those front doors there?
Well, most of our collection focuses on agricultural implements and processes. So we have a lot of wheeled conveyances and machines, wagons, buggies, pickers and harvesters, but we also are looking at family farmhouses and how people would live the early 1930s and through the 1950s, how people would preserve food, how people would store food, how farm life would happen for ordinary folks living on rural landscape of Tennessee.
Now, do any of these items behind you, like for example, the covered wagon or the carriage, do any of those have individual stories that you can share with us?
Some of the items have provenance that we're well aware of, and some of the items were donated and they don't have a backstory. The mail wagon, for example, we know was used by a World War I veteran, and apparently had lost his arms during the war, so he delivered mail. His job was to deliver mail, and he drove this mail wagon around without the use of his arms.
Of course, you've got two floors here of the Ag Museum. Talk about maybe the upstairs as well, and anything up there in particular that you'd like to mention?
Well, the upstairs, we have a textiles area where we examine the use of cotton and flax and how those were processed and could be spun and woven into materials. There's also a section on horses and mules where we have equipment that's used for harnessing and shoeing and taking care of animals. And we also have a lot of wagons. We have a significant plow collection upstairs as well.
Talk about outside as well too. I mean, this isn't the only part technically of the Ag Museum, is it, where we're standing right now?
That's correct. The entire grounds of the Ellington Ag Center were originally built by Rogers Caldwell in the early 20s. So his mansion is here, and the place we're standing right now was actually a horse barn that he used because he raised pleasure horses. So we're in a converted horse barn. It was converted into a museum, and so you can still see evidence of the fact that this was a horse barn by the stalls, the appearance of stalls. And we've converted those into museum exhibit areas. But if you look real close, the bones of the building, you'll see horse stalls. So Rogers Caldwell built the barns, but he also built the cabins outside. He actually deconstructed those cabins, and they were brought from other areas, so they were not original to the area, but the cabins are historical cabins from probably around the Civil War period and possibly earlier, but they were brought here and reconstructed in the 1920s. But those are also significant parts of our historic landscape. Sure. This is the Oscar Ferris Agricultural Museum. Oscar Ferris was a Davidson County Agriculture Extension agent. And he's the one who began the collection. He began acquiring objects. People either donated them to him or he himself personally selected them, and they were stored here for many years until the museum was established and opened to the public in 1979.
And does it amaze you to, now that the museum has been open close to 40 years, that it's still in great shape and that what you can see in here is so authentic?
It is, and in fact, we're glad that you noticed the museum's in great shape, but we're also in the process of looking at renovations, of new flooring, new roofs, updating exhibits where necessary, and that's part of the whole process. But we've tried to keep it in, be good stewards of our resources and keep it in good condition.
Have you learned anything pretty significantly since you've started working here? Anything maybe that you didn't know that now you're like, wow, that's pretty neat that I found that out?
Well, just the way all of the parts and pieces work together, the way people work the land, the way people use machines to work on land to increase yields, the history behind the way that people have worked the land and the way that people try to enhance the landscape and enhance the way that they make a living farming. And the trend over the century has been towards mechanization and increasing the size of farms. But really what I'm finding out now is that the small farmers, they're just as important, and they've had a hard time of it. But the small farmers and the people that work on the farm to feed people locally, that's a big movement in agriculture right now. So that's we want to focus on the heritage of the family farm, and also realize that it's not a thing of the past, that it's really an important, critical part of the future, the family farm. And the trend is pretty well established for large-scale industrial agriculture, but we can't forget that the individual farmer and the family farm is just as important and an integral piece of our heritage.
Speaking of farmers, we have lots of farmers in Macon County, and our biggest crop there is tobacco. And you have a little bit of a tobacco display here as well. Could you talk about, why that you all decided to make sure that tobacco was at least a little bit of part of this museum?
Well, tobacco is a very significant crop in Tennessee, as it is in many places in the South, and so that's one of the areas we'd like to enhance and show the importance of tobacco. There are many other cash crops that are very important in Tennessee, cotton and corn, but tobacco certainly, at least early to mid 20th century, was a extremely significant and highly valuable crop.
Now, if somebody hasn't been here before, what are the hours of operation, and is there an admission charge?
Well, the best part of this is that we're absolutely free. Hours of operation are Monday through Friday from 9 to 4. We do have a lot of special events that we're very proud of. The Rural Folklife Festival happens in May. We also have what we call Summer Saturdays, where we bring in farmers and different themes. We may have a theme day with horses, days with goats and other kinds of farm animals. And our biggest festival is the Music and Molasses Festival that happens usually in October.
Okay.
And so we have a lot of vendors, and it's by far it's our largest attendance for the year. We'll have several thousand people that come for that.
If you would like to visit the Tennessee Agricultural Museum, the address is 440 Hogan Road in Nashville. Reporting from Davidson County, Barry Hyatt, NCTV.